time machine. I mean, jokes and memes about how old the Lakers were and our 2013 All-Star team. Guess what? They were right. This team is old, and this is a big problem. You can kill Russ. You can kill.
Sorry, I'm usually web swinging.
You can kill THT. Bottom line is they're old, and when you're old, you have trouble maintaining a high level of play throughout an entire game. And that's why you see so many ebbs and flows with the Lakers. All right, sometimes they look great during a game, and other times, 12 minutes later, they look horrible. They have blown more double-digit leads in losses than any other team in the NBA. And that is directly related to the age. So that's a problem. All right, but it is what it is. You're old, and this is your roster. So barring some huge trade that probably isn't coming, here's a few suggestions for the Lakers, Nick. One, slow it down. I said this the other day, but they're playing at the fastest pace in the league. And I know, Wild, you think old fogies should play at a breakneck speed. But I don't, all right? They can't keep up with these young teams. All right, and furthermore, LeBron James has always played slow. He's never won a championship with a team playing in the top 10 in pace. Think back to Golden State when he beat them in Cleveland. How'd they do it? They slowed it down. When Kyrie and Love were hurt in the 2015 finals, how'd LeBron keep them close? They slowed it down.
That was
all right, and that's what they need to do. That's one reason. I'm not saying go that slow. I hear you. But I'm just saying, don't try to be the fastest team in the league. But one reason his numbers are so high is because they have more possessions because their pace is faster and he's shooting more threes. So that's the first thing. Secondly, and here's this one's scary, but they gotta try to get Russ out of there down the stretch. And I'm not saying every game, and you certainly don't go to the podium and announce it. All right, but just, maybe you got another team that's playing well without Russ, with Russ on the bench, another lineup, and you don't bring him in automatically with 7 minutes to go. You just leave him on the bench and surround LeBron at the end of the game with some shooters. Melo, Malik Monk, Stanley Johnson,
Spider-Man.
defender.
So my tracker picked up some more people who were at the party and might have gotten...
see how it goes. Maybe it doesn't work. But take a
This is
try
Ethan
because
Albright,
Russ with
a
his
biochem
poor
TA.
decision-making,
Didn't show
his
for class.
turnovers,
My
his
software
lack of
picked him up in a
shooting, and
photo.
now
But there's other pics from the
missing
same
layups
location
at
and
the
he's
rim.
gone.
You
Still our
gotta
best
try
shot. I'll try to find the place.
and
Thanks.
Those are my suggestions.
Can I jump in there?
Philip's photo is my only
Yeah,
lead again. I gotta find this
Let's go
location.
big picture.
Picture shows elevated train tracks.
I
Like the
wanna
ones
go
up in East
light
Harlem.
about last night. Because the Grizzlies are, the type of team the Lakers are going to have to beat in the playoffs. They're the type of team the Lakers are chasing in the standings. And I understand they don't have Anthony Davis. But last night was a winnable game. And I don't know if it's fair to say this year I've been a Russell Westbrook defender. But I certainly have not crushed him at the level he's been crushed on other shows or in other media circles.
L trains could mean Harlem.
Last night was an utter and total abomination from him late. Let's just set the scene here. 6 minutes left. Lakers down 1. John Moran at the free throw line.
A delayed reaction. That's not good. There could be corrupted walking time bombs all over Manhattan.
Instead, Stanley Johnson's got that rebound, buddy. But
I think these tracks are in East Harlem.
And he knocks away from his own teammate, John Morant. Bang. Okay, Russ, can you make up for it the next time down? By the way, Carl Jr., I'm a Hardy's guy personally, but very good. Now, the very next possession, Russ. Oh, no. That's a missed layup. Can we see the next Russ possession? These are 3 possessions in sequence as a 1-point game turns into quickly on the next time down a 7-point game. And then, a couple minutes later, Wild, LeBron hands an impossible 3 because he's playing brilliantly. He's got Ja in his grill. LeBron, I'll just pull up from there. Bang. Next time down,
Lee's corruption is
LeBron
frightening.
gets a defensive
Literally,
stop.
no
We can
one's
show it
safe.
to you. Oh,
I'm
and
used to
it's
hostile New Yorkers,
three.
but this is a
LeBron
whole
gets
new level.
Swipe down block. Russ. Go, Russ. We don't. Show us what Russ does with the ball here, please. Go, Russ. Go, 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 go. Okay, no one's gonna stop you, no one's gonna stop you. You've got to be kidding me.
Good thing I've got Philip on my side. That guy has some impressive skills.
I saw someone on Twitter 2 days ago. Does Russ have a basketball version of the Kicks? And I had never even thought of that. And I'm like,
I think this is pretty far north of ESU.
I don't know. I mean, that's a layup in transition to cut it to one. Well, he missed a layup a few possessions prior. That's why they lost us.
All right, so now I want to dig into that. And first about the rebound, that's just muscle memory of stealing the ball from Steven Adams when they were on OKC. That was not necessarily Russ's fault. You can't blame him for that. There's years of stealing rebounds with Steven Adams after free throws. All right, so the question I have is this. Hold on, I'm going to tell you a story for start. This is a quick, true story. One time I was in the Ralph Lauren store, and you know, I'm a handsome guy, tall guy, handsome guy, big guy, impressive guy. And Jason Momoa, Aquaman, came up behind me. And
I'm on the right track. Literally. I should be able to follow these to where the photo was taken.
Of a real man in me.
Looks like I might be... Looks like there's a bridge at the end of the tracks.
That's how I felt last night with Ja and Russ. In this story, Ja is Jason Momoa. Ja tried to dunk on Dwight Howard by
no corrupted students, but it looks like they've been here.
Touching the roof and trying to, and he missed it. He's constantly blowing past Russ. So the question I have for you is this: you miss one or two layups, okay, but for start, Russ.
What happened?
The dunk
Some maniacs going wild.
Christmas.
They were high or something. Ran off on the street.
Gotta find him before someone gets hurt a lot worse.
That I know and love. And then last night, he didn't just miss that layup. He did because he went up for a dunk and changed his mind and went for a layup. So the question I have for you is this, Broussard. Is the fact that Russ has lost a step leading to some indecision at the rim?
There they are. Time to end this.
You know, explosive self that he was 8 years ago, let's say.
It's a great question, Wild, and it's not on that note. Alright, he still is playing with high energy. He's still...
We corrupted a lot of people at the Halloween party.
You're one of them.
Alright, and then look, he should have made it, but he had to go around Nick Claxton, if we can show that again. He had to go around Nick Claxton.
He said he's gonna do it again.
He wasn't highly inducted, but it still wasn't...
The sooner I get you guys back to normal, the better.
Wide open and just got hung up on the rim. You know, here it is. Like, he had to kind of maneuver around Claxton. I don't think that was as bad as everybody made it out. I'll just say this. But you have a good point, Wild, because when you're running just a little bit, now you have to be a little more concerned about the defense. Now you're a little more concerned about getting your shot blocked. Now you're thinking about playing fast.
No time to be polite about it.
Whereas you used to not even think about it because it was just there. Now you do have to think about it. And we all
think that's
know
it.
when Russell Westbrook loses his athleticism,
I was just drinking my latte, thinking about this one time I got mugged. I saw this big crowd of people, and it's like someone flipped the switch. You should be fine now. Though maybe you should switch to decaf.
It's over. I don't think he's there yet, but you have a good point that if he's just lost a smidge, it could be impactful.
And Wilds, I love your comp, even though that was obviously a fake story that never actually happened. Jason Momoa and you do not shop at the same stores. You don't run the same circles. Okay. Was my inventor friend Ryan there?
Look at that
curious. All right, Wilds is adamant that the story 100%. The Wilds is adamant the story's true. All right, America, I apologize. The Wilds adamant the story's true. But the reason I like the comp, even if I don't believe it, is the worst part. I showed you those Russ highlights or lowlights, but the worst part was just throughout the game, Ja beating him at the point of attack with the greatest of ease you could possibly imagine, and that's been a concern for the Lakers all year. Here's the other concern, and this is why your alert level should be at a strong orange. As great as LeBron is, and happy birthday Tiger Woods, happy birthday LeBron. What are the odds? The two greatest American athletes of all time have the same birthday. Well, that's neither here nor there. LeBron's not going to be able to keep this up. Can we see the last 6 games? Because the Lakers are a rousing 1-5 in the last 6. Oh, look! Most points per game by someone 35 plus ever. Now you might be like, Michael Jordan as a Wizard? I thought those years didn't count. No, they only count when they help him, not when they hurt him. We don't talk about them missing the playoffs. What about just overall play? How's LeBron doing in that regard? Oh, wait, look at that. 30, 10, 5, 1.5, 1.5. It's Kareem, Hakeem, LeBron 4 years ago, and LeBron now. They're 1-5 in these 6 games. So LeBron is playing as well as he's played all year, as well as someone his age has ever played in the history of the sport. The other big takeaway there is Kareem was 32 in 1980. What? How long did that man play for? That's neither here nor there. Wilds, look, they're 1-5. LeBron's playing best basketball he's played in his entire Lakers run, aside from the playoffs when they won the championship. They're 1-5. It's a problem. It's a big problem. He's playing that well.
Nick, it's interesting you brought up Jordan, because Jordan with the Wizards could put up numbers but couldn't impact winning like he used to. Same with LeBron. Putting up great numbers, can't impact winning the way he used to. It's called age. It happens. LeBron,
one night, we had actual lobster from Maine combined with our Omaha Steaks bacon-wrapped filet mignons. And I was all for the lobster until I realized, and the way I realized this was they showed up and I heard them moving around, that they were still living in this styrofoam box with the ice packs and everything. And so she had to cook those, because I don't deal with anything that's still moving around. I understand that's how they do it, but I've never actually gone to the time and trouble of meeting my lobster dinner before the inevitable took place. But it was good. And then, on another occasion, we had crab cakes from Maryland, not cooked and frozen, but just sent fresh to us. We cooked them right in the oven and paired those with some ribeyes. On another day, we had these bacon-wrapped shrimp, and I can't remember where she got that from. We had several different kinds of... They were bringing packages of food for a while there, Christmas week. But the main event, the piece de resistance, or I should say the pizza de resistance, homemade Emo's Pizza, Brian Last. Homemade Emo's in Louisville, not St. Louis. Ask me how I did it.
How did you do it?
I'll tell you how. I'd like to hear it. Here it goes. They sell the Provel cheese, and they also, a beloved, wonderful fan whose name has been lost to history a couple of months ago, sent me for my birthday, I think it was, sent me a gift box of Emo's pizza sauce and salad dressing. And I hadn't used the pizza sauce because I was meaning to get some of the cheese. Well, Stacy did it for me. 6 pounds of Provel cheese in 8-ounce containers. And we got a fresh pizza crust from Papa Murphy's over here, because his crust is crust. And spread the Emo's pizza sauce on, and I browned some Jimmy Dean sausage, and we put some green peppers and some onions on that thing, and covered it with a heaping helping of that Provel cheese that is the gooeyest, meltiest cheese in the world, and so tasty. And baked a homemade Emo's pizza, and I got most of it. She got what she could wrestle away from.
Snoring now.
But that was for Christmas Eve.
This is where the party is.
You don't sound impressed. Now, we had a real pizza, not that kind of cardboard, lack of toppings, generic stuff that y'all wheel out there up in New York. We had real St. Louis pizza.
You have never spoken of this Emo's Pizza and had it sound appealing to me in any way. Sounds disgusting.
Okay, let's see what's happening inside.
Well,
And we have the best pizza in the world, and it's recognized by everyone.
Geronimo!
Yeah,
New York, New Jersey, Long Island. I mean, that's it.
Well, that doesn't take
MJ,
into account St.
I'm at the
Louis.
third location.
Or the great
Apparently it's
metropolitan
casual mask day at the
area.
office.
Takes into account
Finally, a
St.
job
Louis
where
and the
you'll fit right in.
metropolitan
Until you
area.
start with the face
It
kicking.
just doesn't rank.
Yeah, I have a feeling HR's not going to be
It
too
doesn't
happy with me.
rank them because that stuff that you sell up there in those little kiosks, what do they call them? Bodegas.
We don't sell. I don't know where you're getting a pizza in a bodega.
It's all those little slummy storefronts with exhaust fumes belching in the front door from all those trucks and buses and taxis that you got up there.
You're in
All
timeout.
over the crust. That's why all the crust looks positively brown and muddy. We've got pure crust up here. And can you think of all the toxins, the airborne toxins that are infiltrating all those New York pizza places? And then not to mention the people hurrying and scurrying in and out the door all the time, bringing in pathogens.
Buying pizza.
And buying pizza, well, they call it pizza, and spreading their disease and their pestilence everywhere. I'm surprised the whole thing is not a petri dish for the next pandemic of New York pizza places.
You know, real quick, as I'm trying to understand this bizarre pizza palette you have,
Pizza.
you've never, I don't believe, you've never spoken on the show about your early days with pizza. Was there a pizza shop in Louisville when you were growing up? When did you first start eating pizza? Did you like it early on? Did you have any issues like with an ice cream cone where you didn't want to touch it because you were going to eat it and your hand touched it? Please talk about your experiences with pizza in the early years.
Well, I had no experience with pizza really in the early years because nobody know-how delivered any type of food out here to the castle in those days as far out as we were. So there was no call Domino's or whatever. And there were Pizza Hut and Pizza Inn, and I had obviously had pizza, but there was not really any specialty shops for pizza back then except for a few of the major chains. There was one place that a friend of my cousins used to run that was a kind of a homemade, not a chain, Italian place. They had pizza and all kinds of things like that. We would go there every once in a while. Pizza wasn't a big deal back then, but around about the late 70s when I started going to Evansville, that's when, as I've mentioned this place, we started going to the Rocka Bar there in Evansville. All the people in Evansville and that surrounding area know what I'm talking about. They got two locations, but the original one has been there since the 60s probably. And that's where we would go after the match to get something to eat before we came back to Louisville, and Miss Jarrett and whoever was driving her went. Part of the dining room opened for us a little bit late because they knew we were coming from the matches. And that was incredible pizza. So what I started doing was I started getting one there, and then back then a fucking large pizza from this place was like $6 or whatever. So I'd get 3 of them pre-cooked, where they weren't cooked all the way. They'd wrap them up, and I would take them home, put them in the freezer, and then when I got back in from whatever show we might have gone to, I would stick one in the oven, and I'd have 2 or 3 more before the next week, when we would go back to Evansville and I'd get some more. An old man named Caslavecchio owned the place, and he made
So I think the new guys have to tag the old guys, and they have to go to their corner,
his
no?
own pizzas and put them in the oven himself. And they were good, and every piece, they cut them in those big slices like you crazy people up there, and then they flop everywhere. They cut them in squares like normal people do down here in St. Louis and Little Beach. And every square had this beautiful sausage ball sitting on top of it. They were evenly placed with love by hand. They were amazing. Look, and I've loved pizza ever since.
It's just pizza, especially when it has no sauce, which is a problem with some of the places out there, to be honest. Grandma pizza was fantastic. Grandma pizza. I'm not even going to try to explain
Be honest, you were all waiting next door until I thought I'd won just to be mean, weren't you?
However, pizza done best is a circle, or even something that kind of resembles a circle.
Here, it looks like we took over a legitimate auto repair business.
Explains where the demons get all their vehicles. Trucks, ambulances.
Exactly. You shut this down, they'll have a tougher time moving around the city unnoticed.
But the best pieces are the ones in the middle where you got no crust on the edge and you can eat the whole thing.
You don't want any crust? No. Why wouldn't you want crust? It's delicious.
I would hate to see the group text that got you all here.
The toppings. I'm like, you mean to tell me that you eat the naked crust around the ring, around the outside of the pizza? That's like a pizza bone. You eat everything up to the edge of the crust there, and then leave the pizza bone on the plate.
No, that's the part where you're hopeful in a perfect world with a good pizza place. There's enough sauce near the rim, near the barrier, that you can eat some of that crust that remains with the sauce. So it's not just the bone of the pizza as you put it. You gotta eat the whole slice. When I get a slice, see, this is the problem. I never make pizza good enough. No, eat the entire slice.
No. What the fuck's the matter with you?
Hold on! Before we start, let me check the maximum occupancy for this place.
You don't, I mean, I was gonna say, you don't just like pick the cheese and the sauce over the
You eat all of them together, but the ring, what you hold on to is the crust around the egg, so there's no toppings on. That's the You're like you're eating a chicken leg. Eat the meat off and put the bone down on the plate. The toppings and the goodness off the pizza, you put the crust down, the bone on the plate. Don't you know these things, Brian?
I disagree, but let me ask you a question. I'm curious, because I know you liked Domino's in the past, especially when you were on the road.
Well, I didn't say I liked it. I just it was available on the road, yes.
Late at night, you're in your hotel room, you can still get Domino's.
Well, it's probably one of the reasons I've had such problems with acid reflux after that.
And one of the great things about Domino's is when you are in that moment of desperation, where you're ready for Domino's, it's the most delicious thing you'll ever have when it's fresh.
Yeah, because you're starving and it's the only thing available.
And the bread is good to the point where they started selling breadsticks, cinnamon bread, and all these different bread combinations. So that's a little different than the average pizza bread, because Domino's is different than the average pizza. Do you eat that bread?
You're talking about the bread?
The crust of that pizza, Domino's pizza. Do you eat that?
No, I don't eat the crust of any pizza.
Wow.
Because that's the handle.
MJ, I may have just done the opposite of repair at this repair shop.
Don't worry, I'll get the cops down there. They'll clean things up.
You get a square slice with nothing to hold on to, as you put it.
Well, then that's even extra good because you get to eat the whole thing, and that's where it's thickest. You get the most cheese and meat, which is, after all, why you're there to begin with. Cheese and meat. Or meat with extra cheese.
Well, Jim, I have to ask, I'm not even going to go any further with the pizza stuff right now, because this could turn into a whole show long.
I may not talk to you anymore if you keep up.
But let me ask you this, considering all this that you said that you ate, including making your own Emo's Pizza, did you gain weight? I mean, you've been losing weight, you've been in such great shape. Everyone saw that video of you and was raving about how good you looked. And now you ate all this. What happened?
Yes. Well, that's because for the first time in my life, Brian, I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, Jim, you could stand to gain a few pounds. And that's what I decided to do. I decided to gain a few pounds over Christmas. No, over the last 6 or 8 weeks, honestly, besides the fact that the weather's turned colder, I don't even sweat when I'm trucking that stuff into the post office or out in the garage or feeding the deer with the wheelbarrow in the back. I haven't sweated. I've been tired a lot of times in the evening after filling orders for 8 or 10 hours. I'm just going to have a sandwich and lay down, whatever. And I got down to 195 pounds from my former base weight to between 200 and 205. And I said, you know what? I got 5 pounds to play with here. So it's not often I can say that. So I didn't even talk about the first day.
Hey, is this roof taken?
He got me white fudge covered Oreos and also a Patti LaBelle Nanner pudding, which I'm still working on because I'm saving that for special occasions like nighttime.
You're done. So much for the opening act. Main event's inside.
Strawberry cheesecake ice cream.
Let's dive right in.
Alternating those also. So I've got back up to
MJ, I'm at the 4th place on your list. They're not even trying to pretend they're legit.
It's just sad when criminals don't take pride in their work anymore. I'll see what I can find out.
Now that you're in shape, you gotta stay in shape.
Oh, I see what you're going for there. You're thinking now.
Now's the time.
Well, now that he's just a fat fuck, now that he just can't wear any of his clothes, now he's got to start exercising. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know if it's come to that drastic of a point yet, but I'll guarantee you one thing, I know where to go if I want to exercise, if I want to work out, if I want to get in shape. Echelon. Our friends at Echelon got you covered coming and going, folks, whether you're trying to reach your fitness goals, trying to work out, trying to feel better, they've got you covered on the equipment, the instruction, and the people to egg you on and give you that extra push and potentially punish you if you don't meet your goals. Because we got to run a tight ship here, folks. But Echelon, it has world-class instructors like Nicole Griffin. She was married at one time to Peter Griffin before Lois. And also Michael Brown. But they choreograph classes with music from your favorite artists. And you've got a community, like I said, of hundreds of thousands of people who can give you that extra push, and they all live in your immediate vicinity. They'll be knocking on your door if you don't follow through with things, folks. Anyway, Echelon is the affordable way to get the workout equipment, the workout community, and an instructor's motivation right in the comfort of your own home. They've got thousands of live and on-demand classes with great music. With Echelon, you can work out anytime, day or night, and crush your fitness goals. Well, you gotta be strong to crush stuff. So work on your hands first. Just pick your class, climb the leaderboard, which we've mentioned. It's a challenge in itself. That fucking leaderboard is high and it's steep. But you can cheer each other on and give it your all with Echelon certified fitness instructors who are supportive, engaging, and fun. But you don't have to get engaged to any of them. If you're already married, they'll just help you work out. Also, Echelon has a full range of affordable workout equipment, including stationary bikes. Don't expect to get anywhere, but they will give you good exercise. Smart mowers. People will come to your home, put you in a boat, and row you around the lake. And they're smart enough to get you back home. You're not going to disagree with me about any of this shit today, are you? They've got sleep fitness screens. And the ever-popular and highly addictive auto-folding treadmill. It folds up by itself safely whenever it wants to. Just whenever it wants to. No. As directed by the user. As directed by the user, this will fold up by itself once you give it the word. And we'll get into these smart things these days. Just don't tell it your bank account numbers or personal information. Don't talk to the treadmill, just instruct it on what to do every once in a while. But they're all connected. All these items, all these pieces of equipment are connected.
Stockbrokers!
Echelon experience,
just
which
noticed the
includes
mask.
around-the-clock classes for the family with full-body workout programs. From your nose to your toes, it'll make your knees freeze, your liver quiver, and your spleen turn green. It'll keep you coming back for more. One membership covers a family of 5. If you do not have 5 people in your family, they encourage you to start procreating immediately to get your money's worth. But right now, for a limited time only, folks, my listeners can get those $100 on the MSRP. television and, you know, involved in some way when they were actually as 75 and had changed so much and had transformed. That's what I'm trying to think of. Vince has had more longevity than just about anybody.
Well, you know, there have been guys.
I mean, Lawler's only 5 years younger than Vince is, but Lawler's Lawler. I mean, I'm sure he's...
I was going to say, Lawler and...
He's had some things worked on, but fuck. He doesn't have anything bionic. Lawler still can have a fucking match and throw a drop kick. I think he'll look better at 75 than Vince does now, even though Vince had the physique advantage all those years. Maybe that's the reason why Lawler looks better now.
And I think Lawler had a good doctor because it appears that Lawler and Ric Flair both had face work done, but Lawler just looks like another version of Lawler. Flair, it did like radically change the way he looked, I thought.
I just, you know, what did he have done? I don't know.
His face.
Well, I mean, what part of he still got a
facelift?
He would have, if you would have told people 30 years ago he was going to have anything done, Arn would have said, well, hey, get that fucking nose shaved down. He used to call Flair Beak. Hey, Beak.
Did he have a nickname for everyone?
He had a nickname for everybody. Nikita was Cue Ball, and then when we started wearing the nice, expensive suits, he became GQ Ball. And Tony Wombat, or Eddie Munster, depending on the fucking, you know, and Bobby was Buse. But anyway, nevertheless, all I'm saying is Lawler has somehow managed physically to defy time to that level, and even died. Vince he had that commanding presence, whether on television or in person, when he walked in the room and he had the voice and he stood up straight and you knew it, and he was always in
Yay, new guys! I'm sure you'll do way better than these guys just like you who I wiped the floor with.
Yeah, I feel bad.
He kind of looks like Mr. Peanut.
Peter, that business is listed as an importer of computer parts.
Huh. I didn't know they'd started making laptops out of guns.
So it's an armor?
Not for long. I'm about to get some payback for Jeff Davis and everyone else that killed at City Hall.
I'm trying to be the 75-year-old.
It's tough. Well, wait a minute.
I'll put Sylvester Stallone against Vince.
Hold on, I'm just thinking, I think he's 75 now. Bill Dundee, if he hit Vince with one of his working punches, he'd go down still to this day.
I would take Dundee over Vince in a fight right now.
Yeah. Because
this question for you. Bill Watts is crappy. Do you think Vince
More of them! Good! I meant to ask you, how do you deal with sneezing in your mask? Big problem for me.
I'm pretty sure, well, a working punch or a real punch?
Was there a difference? A real punch.
At least he would try not to hurt you. And the result would be similar, but he'd try with a working punch. Actually, you know what? It was a rip. I can't remember who he was working with when he did this, but he told Bobby and Dennis the story before the last Stampede match, so they knew what was up when he called it. But apparently he'd been working with a guy, and as he shot the guy, it was a main event, and it was somebody that he was fucking, you know, on the same level as Watts, wasn't just telling the boss what to do or whatever. He was shooting the guy up, and the guy said he'd do a drop kick. And so when the guy came back,
Hey, more guests! Come in, grab a chair! We're playing charades!
Drop kick, motherfucker. So he started it when he was making it. The iceberg tag, and the dog with the truck point was fucking coked down, not present. Once he started making his comeback, boom, 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 and he'd shoot Bobby or Dennis either one up. They drop kick, and they'd, oh shit, they'd come back and punch him right in the fucking face. And then he had this spot he wanted to do this color, right? Where he would punch Dennis take a bump and turn over on his hands and knees, and Watts would come and throw a football kick to Dennis's forehead. And he was like, oh shit, he was going to come right over the edge of the forehead, right? He said, you'll never feel it. First time he did it, bam! Dennis said he saw three stars, he couldn't find his fucking blade. And so every night, for the first 3 or 4 nights, he'd get his juice that way, because he got juice on Bobby and Dennis in each match of the what we have 15. Double juice on both of them in each one of the matches. But people had to get what they did. Anyway, by the third or fourth match, no, God, it was deeper into it than that. There was like 6 or 7 of them left. One tore his hamstring. And that's what we went in the Superdome, the tape from the Superdome that still exists in that match. Watts has his thigh taped from the knee to his fucking crotch because he tore his fucking thigh muscle
MJ,
quad or whatever.
Everything's quiet here now.
You didn't get too carried away, did you? What they did was horrible, but you're not.
So then Dennis had to get on his hands and knees even lower for Watts to kill you because he couldn't get his foot up off the ground. But anyway, drop kick.
Do you think anyone has the guts to say to Vince, you know, Vince, you look ridiculous. You got to do something else if you're going to be on camera?
No, well, he doesn't look ridiculous. He's not wearing the New Day's, you know, entrance costume.
Did you see his eyebrows?
I saw the eyebrows were ridiculous. He looks like an old man, and the one guy that everybody that knew him thought would never age, and the one guy that they've seen with all that vim and vigor on television, even if you've never met him or seen him in person, I think it's just, at this point, it may be to have him stand in the ring and do the same type of delivery or deliver the message the same kind of way. It might be it's a bummer now. Maybe he should be in a boardroom setting with the table and the chair or whatever. I mean, make use of he's the most famous wrestling personality they still have in the company. Make use of him, but just don't have him doing the same kind of shit he used to do, because then you're comparing it to 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And anybody's going to lose something.
Okay, let's get to another question, and this is another very popular topic.
Another popular topic?
A very popular topic.
A very popular topic.
Many people are sending questions about it on Twitter.
Do you pop out at parties? Are you unpopular?
Many people will send the questions in various fashion to cornydrivethrugmail.com, but we'll use one from Twitter here. This was sent in on Twitter using the hashtag cornydrivethru from Heel Champa. What are your thoughts on the news that WWE sent Keith Lee back to the Performance Center? I thought Lee's work and agility were amazing considering his size, but I would like to hear your take on this one, and we received a ton of questions about this. I have an article pulled up too. Apparently Keith Lee...
Okay, well, fill us all in. For those of us who do not live and die by this information, fill us in exactly what's going on here.
Well, let me just ask you before I go forward. Do you know anything about this already?
I do not know anything about Keith Lee.
Okay.
So, no.
Well, here's an article. I'll pull it up from the Wrestling Observer.
Yeah, I thought he had just gone to the main roster, right? Did they just send him back?
He did. Well, here's the article. This one's from the Wrestling Observer site. Not written by Dave. Someone else wrote this, Josh Nason. As reported by Dave Meltzer in this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter, WWE Chairman Vince McMahon recently, quote, threw a fit about the working ability of certain main roster talent, ordering some of those in his crosshairs to do additional training at the Performance Center. Meltzer noted in particular, some of the talent that drew McMahon's ire are of the larger variety. PW Insider's Mike Johnson put some names to that on Friday, reporting Keith Lee, Otis, Davo Kato, Leo Madden, and Omos, I think that's how you pronounce that.
Almost? Is it almost?
AJ Styles' bodyguard.
Almost?
Are among those who are taking classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays with Adam Pearce and Drew Gulak. Arturo Ruas was another wrestler that is believed to need additional work, but he is currently injured. Following his NXT Championship loss to Karrion Kross, Lee was called up after SummerSlam and immediately began a feud with Randy Orton. He has been a fixture on Raw, but recently made his main event debut in a win against Angel Garza.
Okay, but so he hasn't been sent back.
He's not back in NXT, but he's in
NXT or developmental, but he's back. Okay, well, there's several things. Number one, that was not unusual with guys in the OVW days. That guys would be, I mean, not guys that have been on the roster for main roster for years would suddenly be splitting their time between both, but guys who had been brought up would still, there'd be a transition period sometime, or maybe they'd say, well, hey, we'll have them hang out in Louisville the 3 days a week or whatever and still go to class, but so this is not revolutionary. Secondly, obviously nobody's saying that Keith Lee and Daba Kato and Famous Amos and all of those people are at the same level of experience or talent or the amount of progress in their in-ring career, whatever the fuck. They're not at the same level. What I'm seeing here, especially since a lot of it is big guys, is Vince. I'm just trying to read the mental telepathy that he sends out. That's how he used to tell us how to do a lot of things, by mental telepathy, and we wouldn't pick up on it. And then he'd say, God damn it, I wanted it done this way. And he doesn't think any of these big guys can work like big guys and get over like big guys anymore. And so he might have seen something that one or two guys did and just said, you know what, all these guys, make sure they're having a class with Adam Pearce, tell them how to work like fucking giants. That's as possible as anything. And also the way that they have phrased that, not happy with their work, it's because it's such a one-dimensional way to write this article, because they don't really understand the difference. Vince is not talking about, I'm sure that he feels that Keith Lee's power slam is just wonderful, and his splash off the top rope is great and doesn't hurt anybody and whatever. He's not talking about teach these guys. Well, maybe in Dabba-Kato's case, we haven't seen much of him. I don't know how he is. Maybe, and Otis. Otis is a guy we said, wow, look at some of the things he's done, which has probably come back to bite him in the ass, because that guy shouldn't do a lot of the things he can do, unless it may be the main event at WrestleMania. But he's not having them teach them more moves, or how to do the moves better, or perform the moves, which is what a lot of people think when they hear teach him how to work. We've said before, Keith Lee is an amazing athlete, but he works with some guys that are 150 pounds lighter than he is, like it's equal, like it's even, like it's supposed to be even. We've said that on several occasions, that he has the potential to be a huge star, but that he needs to be a more fearsome giant. Maybe Vince don't like that cheerful, Fraser Crane delivery. I don't fucking know, but that's what probably I would have to say if they're giving him to Adam Pearce. And who else did you say?
Drew Gulak.
Haven't met Drew, but if they're giving him to Adam Pearce, Vince is wanting to teach them more thought about what they're doing and why and what they should do and shouldn't, and how to get over as big guys and as impressive big guys, and in that vein. That's what they're doing. And I can't say that shouldn't be done. But I pretty much guarantee you that Vince just saw one guy maybe do and just said, I've had enough. Because I've seen this all over the place and blah, 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 and these guys need to learn how to fucking work.
And if there's one thing we know, Vince loves his big guys.
Yes, these are guys that he will, if they give him anything, he'll make them $1 million fucking dollars. Because he's predisposed to like them already, but they can't go out there and have... Didn't we see Keith Lee at one point working fairly competitively with Johnny Sameface on NXT? It's because it's so...
New profile pic. Huh. Thought you'd be taller. Shouldn't you be swinging or something? Bet I can sell this.
Don't mind me.
Hey, big fan. New profile pic. Hey, strike a pose. How's it going? You speak English? Hey, I got a business proposition. New profile pic. Spidey! Yes! Did you guys see that?
It's such a one-dimensional way to write this article because they don't really understand the difference. Vince is not talking about, I'm sure that he feels that Keith Lee's power slam is just wonderful and his splash off the top rope is great and doesn't hurt anybody or whatever. He's not talking about teach these guys. Well, maybe in Dabocato's case, we haven't seen much of him. I don't know how he is. Maybe, but and Otis. Otis is a guy we said, wow, look at some of the things he's done, which has probably come back to bite him in the ass because that guy shouldn't do a lot of the things he can do. Unless it may be the main event of WrestleMania.
Looks like the bomb guy's MO. Only this time he's using a drone to seed spy cams around the city. I better round him up and take down that drone.
Better or perform the moves, which is what a lot of people think when they hear teach him how to work. We've said before, Keith Lee is an amazing athlete, but he works with some guys that are 150 pounds lighter than he is, like it's equal, like it's even, like it's supposed to be.
Follow that drone.
We've said that on several occasions.
That's one high-end spy cam.
Has the potential to be a huge star, but that he needs to be a more fearsome giant. Maybe Vince don't like that cheerful, Fraser Crane delivery. I don't fucking know, but that's what probably I would have to say if they're giving him to Adam Pearce. And who else did you say? Drew Gulak. Haven't met Drew, but if they're giving him to Adam Pearce, he's wanting them. Vince is wanting to teach them more thought about what they're doing and why and what they should do and shouldn't, and how to get over as big guys and as impressive big guys in that vein. That's what they're doing, and I can't say that shouldn't be done. But I pretty much guarantee you that Vince just saw one guy maybe do and just said, I've had enough. Because I've seen this all over the place and blah, 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 and these guys need to learn how to fucking work.
And if there's one thing we know Vince loves is big guys.
Yes, these are guys that he will, if they give him anything, he'll make them $1 million fucking dollars. Because he's predisposed to like them already, but they can't go out there and have... Didn't we see Keith Lee at one point working fairly competitively with Johnny Sameface on NXT?
10 seconds.
But you can't blame him for that if they're putting him in there with Johnny Sameface and they're telling him, you know, he's a main event guy. You have to work with him like he's...
Now I can catch the drone.
And that's why Vince is sending them back down. Because I didn't say they were teaching them right. You know, that's what the unnamed AEW guy said. We're doing what we were taught. Who fucking taught you this shit? That's the fault of the inexperienced promoter and booker allowing himself to be misled on talent. If they come from schools where they were taught to do all that shit, they didn't come from very good fucking schools. I can say that as someone who personally had a hand in training most of the big stars in the WWE the last 20 years, I not only can never remember teaching someone how to do a dive outside the ring, I can't remember ever calling one in a finish. And all those guys made millions of dollars. So, I don't know what schools all these people are going to.
This next one was sent to cornydrivethrough@gmail.com from Roberto Rivera. My question for you, Jim, is what is the single worst thing Vince McMahon has ever done to professional wrestling that has been a detriment to the business?
Oh, come on. Just off the top of my... I'm going to do the Sports Illustrated guy. Just off the top of my head, I am going to quantify all the things that Vince has ever done and instantly come up with a number one.
I think it's not as bad as you think in terms of what is the single worst thing that's been a detriment to the entire wrestling business.
Humoring Shitstain, going toward garbage wrestling in the 90s instead of focusing on the stars they had that was the real backbone of the Attitude Era. That wasn't just one stupid gimmick or one stupid finish, but stuff that had long-lasting effects. Allowing the proliferation of all the tables and ladders and chairs and thumbtacks and stupid furniture matches until that you used to have to sell him on breaking a table, and it was only to be done on a big angle or on a pay-per-view, and now they've got them stacked up under the ring like playing cards. So, I mean, you know, I don't know how to answer something like that.
I'm going to go with putting the different promotions around the country, the territories, out of business.
Well,
because
it would be a good one.
In terms of the long-term detriment, recently, and I was surprised to hear this on a 1990 episode of John Arezzi's show that we cover on Pro Wrestling Spotlight Then and Now, John was talking about some of the problems with WWE losing some talent and not having talent come in, and the NWA's talent issues. And in 1990, this is just 5 years after the expansion, he's saying, well, you know, Vince put all these companies out of business. There's nowhere to get top-flight talent anymore. So I think that may be the single biggest detriment, was just making it so you need your NXT. You need everyone to be trained the same way by the same people to work in the same system, as opposed to guys developing their craft, working many different places before they get onto a national stage.
Good thinning, Brian. And also, but here's another thing. It doesn't the training doesn't have to be so cookie cutter. Because we didn't do that in OVW. Everybody, you were taught to work safely and the best ways to bump or to execute particular moves so that you wouldn't hurt yourself or whoever you were giving them to. I mean, that's kind of standard. There's some leeway in there, but it's a lot of standardized business. But we didn't specifically make everybody talk the same and act the same and dress the same and cut their hair the same. When they used to cut the guy's hair, I'd have guys that looked like rock and roll stars. Seth Skyfire, Nova, Doug Basham, and they'd come back bald or with some fucking haircut that looked like they worked at a bank. So just because a lot of guys are being trained in the same place doesn't mean that they need to come out of that place looking the same, acting the same, and talking the same. I don't know what they're doing to them now, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't follow that the same training location turns out guys that all work the same. It's being done now on purpose, I guess. But your point was right. Probably the original sin was the reason why the wrestling business worked that way for so long was fairly obvious when you look back at what they did to it afterwards. Because that's the way it operated the best, the most profitably for everybody, the most advantageously for the wrestlers and the promoters. Regional territories, there's always fresh talent, there's never a lack of fucking stars, and everybody prospers.
1985, Vince is still able to pull talent from Memphis, from Mid-South, from Crockett, from Florida,
Hand down.
Florida. 1990, where's he pulling talent from? Dude, that nowhere. That was the problem.
And then, you know, well, for a while, there was a moratorium on bringing anybody from WCW because he didn't want anybody to go there in the first place. So, therefore, they figured if we don't hire people from there, then nobody will want to go there because they're doing such shitty business. That was the first half of the decade, but then
You didn't realize how much guys like guaranteed contracts.
well, you know, but in all honesty, he had the last laugh anyway on a lot of them. But toward the end of the decade, they just ended up cannibalizing themselves, which that, along with all the other hot-shotting, was interesting for a couple of years until it wasn't anymore because then even that lost its impact. So, you know...
Gotta hurry!
And then they had to open their own training facility. Well, they didn't have to. They didn't have to. They needed a place, a training facility.
Man, I was too slow.
Which was the whole idea of OVW. Then they had to open their own because they couldn't leave anybody else alone when they were training talent.
This next question was sent to cornydrivethrough@gmail.com from Fausty.
Gotta follow that drone.
In San Jose, California. On a recent
That's one
podcast,
high-end spy cam.
I've heard, by the way, those are some of the finest walnuts in San Jose.
on a recent pod,
Brian, let me ask you this: you know what you got when you got nuts on the wall?
what's that?
Walnuts. You know what you got when you got nuts on your chest?
Chestnuts?
Chestnuts. You know what you got when you got nuts on your chin? A dick in your mouth. Go ahead.
On a recent podcast,
Hey, yeah, let me ask you this: you know what you call a guy with no arms and no legs sitting on the porch?
Show's over.
Matt. You know what you call a guy with no arms and no legs hanging on the wall? Art. You know what you call a guy with no arms and no legs in a bathtub? Bob.
this is awful.
You know what you call a dog with no legs? It don't matter, he won't come anyway.
I will add this one. It is a Jackie Martling joke I heard years ago. Your humor there reminded me of it. What do you say to a woman with no arms?
I don't know.
Nice tits.
Hand down.
Question sent to cornydrivethrough@gmail.com from Fausty Walnuts in San Jose, California. On a recent podcast, Bruce Russo was discussing February 1997
I'm sure he would.
and getting more involved working with you and Bruce Pritchard on Creative.
Yeah, that's about the time it happened.
He went on a
Gotta move
podcast
faster.
rant questioning the credibility of the
drone
stories
slowed
Bruce
down.
tells due to his history of alcoholic pills.
Could have done better.
He even says, quote, Bruce would tell me during the height of WrestleMania, he would tell me stories of him and freaking Vince snorting cocaine in the back of a limousine.
And I thought robocalls were obnoxious.
What?
Well, I shut down his spy cams.
Bottles of wine on his private jet. But did you ever do or witness Vince McMahon doing rails of coke in the back of his limo?
No, and not only that,
You know what I like about you, kid?
but I've
You're
known
always
Bruce
getting
Pritchard
better.
about
Gee, thanks, creepy
15
stalker
years
guy.
longer than Shitstain has known him.
Taskmaster.
And Bruce
'Cause you keep
never
leaving me
told
tasks?
he was in the
That's
back of
kinda
a
on the
limo
nose.
with fucking Vince
There's a
McMahon
group
doing
of
lines of
mercenaries
coke either.
committing crimes across the city.
And we
These
spent a
mercenaries
lot of
wouldn't
time
happen to be
together,
your
just like-
mercenaries, would
As a
they?
matter of fact, I
No.
spent more
All I know
one-on-one
is they're
time
getting
with
paid
Bruce
well for
Pritchard
their work.
That even
Unless you
almost sounds
stop
dirty
them,
now.
that is.
What's in it for you?
than
I get to
Shitstain
watch
did.
and learn.
Because when I was working with Bruce was the period of time where we would most of the time spend the day at his house playing with his dog, acting like we were working if the office called, and then once a week we'd go to Vince's where he'd tell us what we were supposed to write. And that did not come up. He did share with me that he had done other substances with other talent, which is not germane to this particular point, so we will not give those names, but none of them were Vince McMahon. So here's another thing. Yes, Bruce has mentioned that he has done some substances in the past, but I don't say that he's making up stories or can't remember the stories because of his substance use. I just say that sometimes he makes up stories because they sound better, at least to him, than the actual stories the way they happen. But Stain's one to talk about somebody not being able to tell their stories right when his change constantly. At least Bruce's bullshit's fairly consistent. But Shitstain's changes depending on his audience or the way the story was received the last time he told it. He tweaks things so often to make himself sound better. But no, I believe, because it's true, Vince drunk in the fucking bar and
Looks
the
like
guys
those
giving him the
mercenaries
finishes
kidnapped a rock song
and the
exec
fucking
and
plane
strapped an
ride
explosive
stories
vest on him.
and the other
If they
stuff.
see
But
you,
no,
they
just
kill him.
as a statement,
Tick-tock.
I guess Bruce just liked Shitstain a lot more than me, because all that time that we were alone together, he never confided in me that he used to do lines of cocaine with Vince McMahon in his limousine.
Not to say Vince McMahon has never done cocaine.
I have no knowledge that he ever has, but I didn't say that. I didn't make that blanket statement. I said, if he and Bruce did it, I never heard about it, and I don't know why I wouldn't have heard about it if Shitstain did hear about it, because he wasn't around when it was happening either.
You know, there are pretty famous stories about Vince getting drunk a couple times with the boys and taking the doomsday device in a bar and taking...
And see, that's, by the way, by the time that I got around, and especially 96 when I was up there and on a regular basis around him, that was mostly a thing of the past also, until they started getting their own plane where they could act up and not be in public. But I didn't get to witness all of that activity by Vince either. He was fairly straight-laced at that point.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, and you say fairly straight-laced. Did you ever see Vince drunk?
No.
Never once.
No.
Right.
I mean, that's a blanket statement. I'm trying to remember in that period of time. I mean, you know what? I didn't go and sit at the goddamn hotel
You're just
bar
not very
until
observant.
it closed like a bunch of the guys because they're fucking bored or whatever. I was happy once I got out of TVs or wherever to go to my room, get a pizza, watch some TV, and possibly have some company. But I was not a social butterfly. But in working with Vince, in being at Vince's house on the days we worked there, in driving 3 and 4 hour trips from one place to another in the car with Vince, where we'd leave at 9 o'clock in the morning and get to the TV at noon, and leave at almost midnight and get back to the hotel at 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever the fuck. I don't remember seeing him drink alcohol. Maybe a cocktail, 2 cocktails that we went to, like the steakhouse, or was it a Smith & Wollensky's that he liked to go to in New York? Or a fancy dinner at a steak place like that? Something like that. He might have a drink. I can't remember specifically that I saw him do it, but I'm not going to deny that he did do it. But I've never seen Vince McMahon drunk. I've never seen Vince McMahon either. I don't know that I ever saw him take I saw him take a pill, but was around him after he had taken a pill of any kind. I wasn't around him during his surgery. He had the quads reattached or whatever. I'm sure he might have taken some pain medication, but it's not like he just said, "Wow, boy, I just had that Vicodin and I'm fucking loopy," or anything like that. It's just, no. The drunk in the bar, wanting to be one of the boys, Vince.
Good night, Good.
Probably mostly ended in that era with the steroid trials. And then whatever he was doing when they all got to be billionaires and got their own plane, I have no idea. I had escaped the asylum by then.
These stories about Vince being able to work on no sleep, and everyone says, oh, he's like a robot or an android or a monster. How's he doing this? Do you think it's the cocaine?
No.
Running out of time.
Again, no. It's just he's miserable if he can't work. And he doesn't like to sleep because it keeps him from working. We'd go in there on a Wednesday. We're supposed to get there at 9 o'clock in the morning, right? Well, that's a fucking 2-hour drive from where we lived, me and Bruce, in those days. So we're in the car at 7 o'clock, but we got up at 6:30 and fucking jumped in the car to go down there and hopefully not be late. we'd come in, Vince has already been up, he's already had his coffee, he's already had his workout in his home gym, he's already got the paperwork spread out on the fucking dining room table, and if you are late, even though he's lived there for 20 years and he knows very well that it can take you 2 hours to go 30 miles in that fucking shithole, he looks down his fucking reading glasses at you and looks at his watch like, what time is it, pal? A lot of traffic? Like that. He was always, and he never wanted to get rid of us. He would not let us leave. At 7 o'clock that night would come around, it'd be dark, depending on what time of year it was. And we're still talking about this horse shit. What's Mark Marrow gonna do about whatever? And I'm gonna tear my hair out of my fucking head.
Oh, they're so cute when they're sleeping.
He would never want you to leave. And if, all right, I guess that's it. Good place to stop. Finally, you get the fuck out of there. And then he'll go and fucking do more shit. So, and it's not like he wasn't at his office 12 hours a day when he was in Stamford. If he was on the road, he's got his book out. There was 2 reasons he never drove. Number 1, because nobody wanted to ride with him driving because he's crazy. And number 2, that way he can sit in the front seat, in the passenger seat with his book out and fucking book. Or talk about booking. So, he's just, that's him. And he had the famous quote. And it's true, unfortunately. He said I can't remember what interview or publication it was, but he said, when I die, I will die a very frustrated man because there's so much left to do. I'm just gonna say, check with me when I'm a fucking billionaire and see if my fat ass wants to do anything.
Did you ever see Vince eat any magic spoon?
Well, no, but I'll tell you what, I've seen Vince attacks food. I will say this, and then we will talk about the wonderful people at Magic Spoon. He doesn't want to enjoy it, he wants to get it over with.
Good night,
right? Even if it's a nice steak dinner, he'll go to the best steakhouse in New York, but he takes big bites and he barely chews. When we would go down the road to the little lunch place, a little like a deli and a little store down the road from his palatial estate for lunch when we were over there, he would always get the same thing. Fucking turkey sandwich with light mustard, just a giant thick, one of those northeast deli, giant thick 2-inch turkey sandwiches with a little mayonnaise, and he would eat the thing in 5 bites while he's looking at his book at the fucking dining room table. It's fuel to him. He doesn't want to enjoy it. He needs it. He needs the intake for his muscle building, but otherwise he wants to get the process over because it keeps him from fucking working with both hands.
Jim, let's get some questions here on the show. This first one was sent on Twitter using the hashtag #HornyDriveThru from Mark in Dryden. What does Jim think about Stephanie McMahon's comments about who will replace Vince? And I have an article here from...
I was about to say, what are Stephanie's comments about who will replace Vince?
This is an article from comicbook.com by Connor Casey. I'll read this. The question of what will happen once Vince McMahon steps down as WWE Chairman and CEO has been on the minds of WWE fans for years. No kidding, especially lately.
Now be nice. Would you stop?
Many assume that the couple of Triple H and Stephanie McMahon will both step in to fill the role given their heavy involvement on WWE corporate side for over a decade. Stephanie McMahon was asked about that topic while on the Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast over the weekend and put a damper on that fan theory. I don't think there will ever be a person-to-person replacement for Vince McMahon. He does too much. The landscape would look different however it shakes out, McMahon said. I do think a lot of the institutional knowledge is important, particularly with regards towards the core content. But it's also surrounding our business with strong, smart executives. And that's exactly what we have. So I do think it's the marriage of institutional knowledge, the incredible production value, the creation of talent IP, and storylines and really strong business executives to help us expand. I think it's a combination of things. It's really remarkable when you think about our history and what Vince accomplished. Think about what he's done. He took what was a regional business and had the vision to go around and create one organization, nationally and ultimately globally. My father saw the opportunity for syndication. He saw the opportunity for advertising. Ultimately, he saw the opportunity to really create something that had never risen to the level of popularity it had never been. That's a weird sentence.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Well, who knows who's transcribing these things?
Yeah, that's right. Comicbook.com.
Have you noticed everybody in a large corporation or publicly traded company masters the art of speaking forever without ever actually saying a goddamn thing? I will agree. You can't replace Vince with one person because there's never going to be another Vince McMahon. But right now, even the Vince McMahon that exists, obviously, is at best spread too thin. I don't know what the fuck's going on up there. I've mentioned it a few times on this program. The things that I see, I can see the Vince McMahon that I knew being aghast over it airing on his television program. So Vince was an integral part of everything, even the tiny, minute stuff that would be done in the company that Vince wouldn't know about. He would have had somewhat of a system in place, or you would know, even if it wasn't something you needed to consult with Vince on. Most of the time people knew not to do shit that Vince wouldn't like. So he was in everything, for good, bad, and indifferent, but for all those years a lot of it was good, because he did get bigger and expand and increase and blah blah blah. But this downhill side has been going on for a while. And I don't know. Everybody says, well, it's all Vince, it's all Vince. At some point, goddamn, is even the one guy in charge of the company to blame for everything here? Or did they just take and run with the fact that everything's the shits? And so I don't see how one person could replace Vince. I don't think Triple H wouldn't want to replace Vince otherwise than running the wrestling part of the company. I'm sure there's a lot of the things that Vince has done over the years that Triple H would be more than happy to stay away from. And also because you've got to remember that any other one person would be a normal human being. And we've joked about how for so many years Vince never fucking slept. Nobody else is going to do that. I'm sure now maybe that's what the problem is. At some point Vince has had to start sleeping. Maybe that's when things started going downhill. I don't fucking know. But it also, with Peacock and NBC and all this other stuff, no one person can run the company anymore. So Stephanie will probably have some department. Triple H will probably be over the wrestling department. They've hired executives to do, most of the business. And then they'll probably all be trying to sell it for $5 billion, as we've talked about, as soon as Vince is gone. So that,
See, I disagree with you there. I think Vince is going to be the one to sell it.
Well, I'm saying if Vince is gone, if he's gone and they still own it, I thought that was the presumption that we're bearing up under. Who would replace Vince?
I think Vince.
Because if Vince sells it, somebody's replacing Vince, whether they want it or not.
If Vince sold it today, let's say, I think you'd have Nick Khan running the business end. You'd have Triple H running the wrestling end. The question is, do you have an overall CEO that they both report into, or does someone like Nick Khan get elevated to that position? I think Nick Khan's there to sell the company. I absolutely believe that.
I can see that. And the thing is, you can't even say, well, it'll be the end of wrestling as we know it, because that horse already left the barn and the barn burned down as a result of the Fiend's pyromania. So what difference does it make? We've already lost the fucking fight. It's gone. So just the question is it going to be shittier once Vince is gone under Nick Khan or corporate ownership to be determined, or is it just going to continue to be kind of as shitty?
That's what you don't know. Like, Disney bought Marvel, and they left a lot of the Marvel people alone. They tried to stay true to the Marvel vision with the movies, and it's been a major success. With George Lucas selling Lucasfilm to Disney, Disney made a lot of Star Wars fans happy, although some not so much, by going in and developing more Star Wars material. George Lucas isn't so happy because they're not doing things that were his vision, but Star Wars fans are a bit happier because they're getting Baby Yoda, and they're getting, the Mandalorian, and they're getting all these different things. So that's the thing. If NBC Universal buys WWE, and if it's NBC, they're buying it strictly because it's a content producer, what's going to happen? I mean, we all assume Triple H. We assume that Vince will sell it with the idea that you got to take care of my kids, and I'm counting Triple H as one of them. What if it's not Triple H? What if some executive comes and he's the new CEO, and he needs a wrestling person who has the institutional knowledge? Stephanie's right about that. You do need that. But what if that person starts talking to Johnny Ace and thinks this is the guy? You know what I mean? Like, what if he starts talking to the wrong person and thinking, this is someone who really knows what they're talking about?
Well, then in that case, they'd be talking to Tony Khan. Because if they want somebody that they can go to that will really fucking wind them up for a good wrestling company, they need to go directly to Tony Khan and quit worrying about Vince McMahon or Triple H or Stephanie or all that stuff. He'll give them something. I just have no optimism whatsoever. I'm looking at, the WWE has run most of these fans off because there was no other option, and it's so fake. And the people who like fake wrestling but just don't like the evil empire, we know how many of them there are. There's 750,000, and they're watching the other show on Wednesday nights, which is abysmal. And there's almost no way now to do wrestling properly because everybody considers it a fucking joke. It would be like trying to do Hogan's Heroes as a drama. So I don't really think it matters who's running the thing by the time Vince is gone. Even if it's only a few years from now, by then, will anybody be watching?
What do you think of Stephanie calling her father Vince as opposed to my dad?
Oh, she does that all the time. Well, I mean, it's not like she doesn't also sometimes refer to him as my dad, but everybody says Vince, even family members.
Let's stay on the topic of Vince. Our next question, sent to cornydrivethrue@gmail.com from Halvey in the state of Minnesota.
Who? What?
Halvey.
Halvey.
On a recent drive-through, Jim mentioned that Vince Jr. held a personal grudge against Crockett Jr. and Vern Gagne. Jim explained why Vince Jr. held the grudge against Crockett, but not Vern. What was the personal issue between Vince McMahon and Vern Gagne?
Well, did I even say, did I use that terminology, he held a personal grudge? Or it just seemed like that was the most delight he took?
I mean, we definitely talked about the idea that he did seem to take delight in crushing Crockett Jr. and Vern.
Yes. Well, I just more enjoyment then. It was not necessarily a grudge, it's just a byproduct with him. I don't know that Vince had a lot of grudges, but with Vern, it was a grudge. Well,
it was a grudge. Absolutely.
Well, yeah. And also, but he got the idea for Hogan, and then because Hogan was working for Vern at the time and was his, top box office attraction, not only did he fuck Vern, but also when Hogan wanted to bring all the people that he was comfortable working with, David Schultz as an opponent, Mean Gene Okerlund, blah, 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 they decimated Vern's roster. He would have probably have done that just to get what he wanted anyway, but then, of course, Vern was not a shrinking violet and said a lot of things, so I'm sure that, it wasn't like Vince didn't give a fuck about poor old Don Owens in Portland. He didn't care about putting Don Owens out of business, and as we've mentioned, he didn't try to put Jerry Jarrett out of business because, you know...
Because neither one of them owned the Midwest.
Yeah, none of those territories were a threat or to him or a place that he wanted to, to take over or invade. So, he left, but he sodomized the territories that he wanted to get a foothold in or get their talent.
Well, the other thing is the story has always been that Vern, and possibly even Greg, kind of laughed off Vince in the summer of '83 when he offered to buy the AWA.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, but everybody else would have too, because they were used to Vince Jr.'s the announcer for his dad. All of a sudden, hey, I want to buy your company you've been running for 30 years. What?
Yeah, and a lot of people, even in the summer of '83, were still unaware that he had purchased the company from Vince Sr. and the other partners in Capital Wrestling. Everyone didn't know that he owned the company yet.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing is, at first, Vince did remember unkindly people who didn't take him seriously.
And maybe Vern was right, because if you look at who Vince made that offer to, notwithstanding Fritz, who didn't go for it, and, Vince couldn't do anything to hurt Fritz, that Fritz and his booking and his family issues didn't hurt that territory enough on its own.
Yeah.
But Vince, the partners in Capital Wrestling got paid, although when you look at the value of what that company was worth, he got a sweetheart deal with them. Tunney got paid and got set up for life or for the next 20 years. Stu got screwed. Michael Bell got screwed. Who's to say Vince doesn't go and offer Vern, who had the biggest territory of all those guys and had top-level talent, hey, I'm going to give you X amount of millions of dollars, and then he reneges on it after 6 months, after he gets everything he wants, including the TV and the wrestlers. Because that's what he did. He went there and he went after his TV, and he went after his top talent. He went after the producers. He went after the C-level commentators. He went after everyone. If you wanted a WWE deal, all you had to do was go work for the AWA.
I agree.
No extra insight. Okay, I got you.
No extra insight.
Well,
we've been down that road and back a few times. I know all the fucking pictures on the wall of the bathroom at that gas station.
Our next question, Jim sent the corny drive-thru at gmail.com from Tom Cedric. My name is Tom Cedric.
Well, now that we've got that established, I think we can move on.
My name is Tom Cedric, and I was a maintenance executive, yes, a real thing, at the American Airlines Arena from 2004 to 2010. In April of 2008, WWE did a taping of ECW and SmackDown in Miami. In preparation of Vince's arrival, the maintenance crew was told to eradicate all mirrors from his office. When we asked why, we were told Vince hadn't been a huge fan of mirrors since 2006. Very specific and odd date. Then they warned us that we needed to keep a roped-off space in the parking garage for him because he has a superstition that when 2 or more cars are in close proximity to one another, they can communicate.
What?
Since I'm still, to this day, not sure if it was a rib, can you please give us any info about these weird phobias?
No. No. I mean, all I can tell you is Vince's office in any arena that they're in, that's one of the prime locations that they rope off, not rope off, but they pick out first, is where Vince's office is going to be, because in the major arenas there are a labyrinth of offices and private dressing rooms and locker rooms or rooms with a mirror and lights and a adjoining bathroom that talent can be in privately because of all the concerts and the pro sports and the things and television productions that these major arenas do. In the smaller buildings, I've mentioned before in the early days of Raw, when we would go to some real fucking doozies, then it was a little harder to find a good place, but wherever they would always get a room that was big enough for Vince and or if several people to have a meeting in, for Vince to have all of his stuff, have his books, and that's where That's the inner sanctum where you go and talk to Vince, or you're summoned to talk to Vince, or whatever. You stand out, if you're the boys, you stand out in the line outside when he's receiving. We've all heard those stories. It needs to be somewhere near Gorilla, so it's not like all the way hell and gone from the, it needs to be convenient for him. But I never once heard of a mirror needing to be removed or saw a mirror removed from any of the rooms that he ever used as an office. I have ridden with Vince, and I've driven Vince in before the.
To this day, not sure if it was a rib. Can you please give us any info, the real thing, at the American Airlines Arena from 2004 to everything he wants, including the TV and the wrestlers? Because that's what he did. He went there and he went after his TV, and he went after his top talent. He went after the producers. He went after the C-level commentators. He went after everyone. If you wanted a WWE deal, all you had to do was go work for the AWA.
I agree.
No extra insight. Okay, I got
No extra insight.
Well,
we've been down that road and back a few times. I know all the fucking pictures on the wall of the bathroom at that gas station.
Our next question, Jim sent the corny drive-thru at gmail.com from Tom Cedric. My name is Tom Cedric.
Well, now that we've got that established, I think we can move on.
My name is Tom Cedric, and I was a maintenance executive, yes, a real thing, at the American Airlines Arena from 2004 to 2010. In April of 2008, WWE did a taping of ECW and SmackDown in Miami. In preparation of Vince's arrival, the maintenance crew was told to eradicate all mirrors from his office. When we asked why, we were told Vince hadn't been a huge fan of mirrors since 2006. Very specific and odd date. Then they warned us that we needed to keep a roped-off space in the parking garage for him because he has a superstition that when two or more cars are in close proximity to one another, they can communicate.
What?
Since I'm still, to this day, not sure if it was a rib, can you please give us any info about these weird phobias?
No. No. I mean, all I can tell you is Vince's office in any arena that they're in, that's one of the prime locations that they rope off, not rope off, but they pick out first, is where Vince's office is going to be, because in the major arenas there are a labyrinth of offices and private dressing rooms and locker rooms, or rooms with a mirror and lights and a adjoining bathroom that talent can be in privately because of all the concerts and the pro sports and the things and television productions that these major arenas do. In the smaller buildings, I've mentioned before, in the early days of Raw, when we would go to some real fucking doozies, then it was a little harder to find a good place, but wherever, they would always get a room that was big enough for Vince and or if several people to have a meeting in, for Vince to have all of his stuff, have his books, and that's the inner sanctum where you go and talk to Vince, or you're summoned to talk to Vince, or whatever. You stand out, if you're the boys, you stand out in the line outside when he's receiving. We've all heard those stories. It needs to be somewhere near Gorilla, so it's not like all the way hell and gone from the, it needs to be convenient for him. But I never once heard of a mirror needing to be removed or saw a mirror removed from any of the rooms that he ever used as an office. I have ridden with Vince, and I've driven Vince in cars, and we always got preferential parking because he's fucking Vince McMahon, and he's either renting the building or owning the company, or I've mentioned he had some kind of goddamn gimmick Hertz card that I've never heard of, and I don't even know was an actual publicly acknowledged thing, where he could rent a car from Hertz and just leave it sitting anywhere. outside baggage claim at the airport, at a fucking hotel, downtown at the parking lot, and they would come and get it. So he always had preferential parking of some description, but he never once told me, or did I observe him, parking away from other cars to prevent them from, communicating with each other?
The exact line here is, he has a superstition that when 2 or more cars are in close proximity to one another, they can communicate.
He's got more than 2 cars in his fucking